I get asked all the time for recommendations on what to watch, and I was trying to put together a list of my favourite shows at the moment when it just so happened that 3, the mobile network, got in touch with me to ask if I would like to work with them on this new service they're offering called Go Binge. I thought, what better idea? I will make a video about my top 3 most binge-worthy shows. Bam. Go Binge, by the way, actually sounds pretty cool. As a 3 customer myself, and as someone who binges her way through a lot of stuff, it sounds really exciting because basically it means that you can just listen to as much music or watch as many shows as you want on certain platforms like SoundCloud or Netflix without using up any of your mobile data. Sweet deal. So there is more information on that in the description if you would like to check it out. Just so you know, all of the shows I'm about to talk about are available on Netflix already, so you can just go right ahead and check them all out as soon as you're done with this video. The first show I want to tell you about is called Glow, and it's a fictionalized series based on the real story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, hence GLOW, Glow. And these were the 12 women who made up the first all-female wrestling league on US TV. The show was created by 2 women, Liz Flahive and Carly Mensch. I hope I'm pronouncing both of those right. And they both worked on the likes of Nurse Jackie and Orange is the New Black before. So they are incredibly used to and incredibly skilled at creating like an ensemble cast that work really, really well as individual stories, but also complement each other very well too. They apparently watched a documentary about Glow and they were just so fascinated by the story, because it is a really interesting story, that they wanted to tell it. They wanted to show the journey of these 12 women who started out as struggling actresses, just desperate for work, went to audition for this thing and ended up learning the skill and the craft of wrestling in order to be part of it, and sort of inadvertently started a movement of female wrestlers. What's great about this series is that it doesn't try to like glamorize what these women went through. It shows just how tough the process was. And while it does highlight how empowered they were by being part of this league, it also doesn't shy away from showing how exploited they were as well. And there are no clear-cut good guys or bad guys, which is great. Like, all of the characters feel very complex. They all have flaws and redeeming qualities as well. And the way in which they navigate this, bizarre new world, to them at least, feels very real too. Aside from all that, there is some pretty intense 80s nostalgia going on, which I'm just a sucker for. The big hair, the costumes, the spandex, the soundtrack, even the way that it's shot just feels really true to the era, and that makes it a lot of fun as well. Although I maybe watched all 10 episodes super quickly and now it's over and I miss all the women and I want them back, which is the worst bit about binging. You gobble it all up and then you're like, oh, I missed that. Actually, 3 put together this thing called the Binge Files, which is like a report on UK binging habits. It's really interesting. And one of the facts in there was that 44% of people have said that they were sad after a show they binged had ended. I am so one of those people. I get way too attached. I also read in there that 9% of women said that binge watching had helped them through a breakup, which is just so me. I've done that. I'm amazed it's only 9%. Either way, that brings me nicely onto my next show. Does it? Yeah, that'll do as a segue. My next show is about the ups and downs of relationships and the complexities of love. It is called Love. This show is also a dramedy, and it stars Gillian Jacobs and Paul Rust as Mickey and Gus, who are the most unlikely and possibly unlikable couple ever, and yet I just can't help but want to see more of them. It's hard to say what the show is about because it's just about these 2 people who meet one day, and for reasons that aren't entirely apparent, they become intertwined in one another's lives. I think that's what I like about it though, is that it feels very true to life. Like, sometimes you find yourself in relationships, be they friendships or romantic relationships, and you sort of wonder how you got there and whether they're good for you, and it's hard to walk away from them though, because there are still good parts. I've heard a lot of people say that they couldn't stick with this show because the characters were just so inherently unlikable, and yeah, I can see where people are coming from, that they don't really like these characters, but also it's really interesting to watch a relationship unfold that is quite unhealthy at times, but also that you can see the good in. You start to see them sort of grow and change. You understand why they are the way they are. And you see a lot of the really nice stuff as well. You see the moments where there's like a glimmer of why they're good for each other. And I think it really puts you in the mindset of them too. You're often on the fence about whether they should stay together or break up. And yeah, that's what I like about it. It feels very, very real in that respect. And I think it's a really interesting, accurate depiction of quite a troubled relationship. Try and just stick through it, because I promise it's worth it. It's a very well written, very funny, very heartfelt show. And I think you will like it if you give it a try. Last up is a very different kind of show altogether. It's Rick and Morty. Now, if you have seen Rick and Morty, then you've just rolled your eyes and said, of course, Hazel likes that. And if you haven't seen it, then it's a tough one to explain. Rick and Morty is a show that is now in its third season. I started watching it based on Sammy's recommendation, which makes me part of the 11% of people who watch shows based on friends' recommendations. Just a number. But yeah, I absolutely fell in love with it the second that I saw it. So I went and binged the entire first 2 seasons, and now I'm just waiting for every new episode to come out every week, which is like torture. So it's about a guy named Rick, who is the grandfather of a kid named Morty. And they are quite intentionally and very obviously based on the characters of Doc Brown and Marty McFly from Back to the Future. But aside from a sort of vague physical resemblance, the fact that they go on adventures together and the odd spot of time travel, that's about where the similarities between this and Back to the Future end. It's quite different in tone. Rick is a depressed, eccentric, borderline, insane alcoholic who also happens to be the smartest man in the universe. And poor Morty is just dragged along to different planets and dimensions and timelines on these batshit adventures, which usually end in death and destruction and dark existential themes, and which are usually also pretty severely detrimental to his mental well-being. Rick and Morty is mind-blowingly intelligent sci-fi, every bit as good as Star Trek or The Twilight Zone, and it's a cartoon, and it's dark, and it's funny as all hell. Genuinely, I have to pause every episode several times just so that I can like stop and have a fit of laughter or marvel at how cleverly written it is. Honestly, the first episode I watched with Sammy, it's called Total Recall. Now, if you know the episode, you already know what I'm talking about, but that final scene, man, it broke me. I was out of action for a while after watching that. I laughed so hard, and Sammy will tell you this, I was heaving. I thought I was gonna vomit up my dinner because I was laughing so hard. And that was all over a character, I'm not even joking, called Mr. Poopy Butthole. Yeah, I did just say this was mind-blowingly intelligent. I did, but it's also so silly and so self-aware and just so good. And I'm gushing now. This is me. This is no longer a review. This is just me gushing. So go watch Rick and Morty. I will leave it there. Alrighty, those are the 3 shows I recommend you go watch. Something in there for everyone, I think, or for whatever mood you're in. Thank you again to 3 for working with me on this. All the information you need on Go Binge or the Binge files is in the description. I really hope you guys enjoy these shows. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought of them, good or bad. And also, if you could leave a comment recommending any other shows that I or other people watching should watch, that'd be great. Thanks. See you soon.